And a very good Friday afternoon to you. Welcome in the Chico Borman Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. It is a Friday, or as Bohm likes to say,
Yay.
Yay.
Woo!
Hey, the sun is shining, so there's a little yay for you, which is good. We got a big show planned coming up at 12:10 as we do each and every Friday during the season, or have for a little while now. Dan Lobby, Cleveland.com, and the Plain Dealer. This is a really weird week. It's in a good way, just really strange. Not only coming off the holiday and all of that, but the Browns are playing for absolutely zero on Sunday, which we've had happen, but it's been the opposite when they've played, had nothing to play for. Like it was, their season's over. Are they going to, our guys are going to win some jobs because they played 4 quarters really hard. They gave it their all. Don't tell those all 53 guys that there's nothing to play for. They could be looking for a roster spot next year. Yeah, that's no fun for the fans. Okay, we don't get any entertainment out of that. Or in the past, it's been, let's hopefully the Browns can get a win and maybe the coach will not get fired. Not the case here. There is zero to play for, nothing, zero, zip, nada. But the Browns, of course, are getting ready for the postseason, finding out who it's going to be. Is it going to be Jacksonville? Is it going to be Houston? Is it going to be Indianapolis? We're going to talk a little bit about later on in the show who matches up the best for the Browns, who's the matchup you want the most, that sort of thing. I think for me it's easy, but I think everybody's got their different opinions on it. But this is just, I don't know. I mean, the biggest news, I think, out of Berea yesterday, quite honestly, was Jim Schwartz admitting, he'd like to be a head coach again, which good for him. I mean, I have no, you can't tell the guy no. Maybe they try to open up the checkbook and pay him more to keep him, but the guy wants to be a coach again, let him. I mean, he's a guy who, and a lot of times these guys that get the second opportunity, they've learned a lot, they've seen a lot, they've heard a lot, and now they want to put it to use. Okay, Schwartz is up there a little bit, but, maybe he absolutely, positively wants to give it another shot. Obviously, his credentials after this season, he is a hot candidate. I mean, my guess is come Monday, Black Monday, and already teams are moving on, that he will at least get calls. And that's, it does stink in a way. I don't expect Browns fans to be, but again, much like we talk about players getting second extensions and contract extensions, these are good problems to have. If your assistant coaches, your coordinators are up for jobs, look at Philadelphia last year. Now, that ended up being bad news for them this year, but I think it's more than just that. But last year, Shane Steichen, Jonathan Gannon, they were fantastic, changed the team around, and now, they're both gone. Now, I don't want to see Jim Schwartz go. Selfishly, as a Browns fan, and I'm sure many of you feel the same way, selfishly, I want to see Jim Schwartz continue as the defensive coordinator because, he was the mastermind. This defense, no doubt, is talented. But they had talent last year. Hell, they had talent the year before that. But it was a matter of finding somebody, and not to crap all over Joe Woods, but it was a matter of finding somebody to finally get them to play their best football, to be the best defensive football team the Cleveland Browns could be. And Jim Schwartz did that and then some. But really, that was the biggest news coming out of Berea yesterday. Jeff Driscoll will be the starting quarterback for the Browns. I mean, it's going to be weird to watch. I don't even know if you do watch. Well, yeah, you do. You got to watch the game. Here's what I would recommend, though. Great from someone, and take this for what it's worth, which could be absolutely zero, nothing. But take this for what it's worth. Those of you that have significant others, okay, And perhaps that significant other, and it can be husband to wife, wife to husband. I don't want to get any, sexist response here. Well, what about I'm a big fan, and I'm a bigger fan than my husband. That's fine. So this is one of those, if your significant other isn't, they know the Browns are doing well this year, but that's really about it. Okay? They're like, yeah, Browns are, yeah, it's good. My husband or my wife's, or maybe both. We're really excited. Our family's excited. But this would be the time, and you could even chalk it up to, boy, the way my evil mind works. You could say, like, honey, one of my New Year's resolutions, I didn't want to tell you about this, but one of my New Year's resolutions is just to pay more attention to you, spend more time with you. But you know what? To do it, even on a Sunday, okay, so we watch Law and Order on a certain day of the week at night, but you deserve a Sunday afternoon. But honey, aren't the Browns playing? Sure they are, but they take a back seat because the following week you want to get as many brownie points as you can. You want to make sure that you are absolutely, it's smooth sailing for that playoff game, whether it's the Browns in Jacksonville, Indianapolis, Houston, doesn't matter. You want to make sure that you have it all ironed out. And the best way to do that, now oftentimes we'll say that during the bye week. It's kind of like the bad joke, like, oh yeah, I'm going to go out and do some yard work and what. But usually they'll catch on to that. This one you might be able to sneak by them. And like I said, you can use it not only as, hey, I just want to spend more time, but because of the new year, like, hey, I didn't want to announce it to you because I figured actions speak much louder than words. I'm so deceptive. I'm going straight to hell. You can really play this up. Honey, I didn't want to announce to you as, one of my New Year's resolutions that I want to spend more time with you and take you places and Sunday afternoons, do what you want to do. But I want to do that, and I want to do that today. The Browns, you're not going to watch the Browns. You know what? The Browns can wait a week. This Sunday is all about you. All about you, sweetheart. So there you go. Dating advice. Boom, how you doing over there? You seem to be kind of in a good mood and tired and all. It's a very scary grin that you have on your face, Boom.
In a good mood, tired, all of which can be true.
Okay. Did you have a good New Year, Boom? Everything?
It was all right. New Year's is my mom's birthday, so had a good time celebrating with her, and we went out to dinner, and it was nice. And pretty low key. How was your New Year's?
Did you? Oh, I didn't do any. I was in bed by like 11:30. Did you play for anybody just out in the neighborhood? Like, did you just set up shop in the driveway and play for New Year's Eve? I'm sure nobody would have minded in the rich neighborhood of Beechwood.
In hindsight, now that you bring that up, Chico, I probably should have.
Yeah.
But no, just
yeah.
I did make a TikTok. It had to be a good one to start off the new year, so I felt good about it.
Yeah. As soon as you say TikTok, I immediately know what that looks like in it. And while I laugh, I also cringe because it's just a very, I've already told you what it makes me think of. But anyway, all right, so we got a lot to talk about again on this Friday. Yes, big football Friday. Yes, the Browns do play, but no, this means nothing. Like Kevin Stefanski, seriously, all those guys, they want to put out as good a product as they can. Okay, do they care? And hopefully none of us really give a damn. Like, we're not going to hear if the Browns lose, and I don't think they will, but if the Browns lose like 35-0, we're not going to have people like complaining, are we? I mean, Boom, we can't have that. Like, you can't. People need to know what the game is all about this Sunday. If they get their butts blown out, who cares? Get on the bus healthy. Get ready for the first round, the wild card round. And without further ado, we bring in our good pal with Cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. He is Dan Labbe, and you can follow Dan on Twitter at Dan_Labbe. That's Labbe. All right, Dan, this is so strange that we, and I know we've been talking about, oh my gosh, the Browns in the playoffs, but beyond that, like week 18, final week of the season, and the Browns have nothing to play for. Yeah, sure, we've been down that road before, but it's been entirely different circumstances, right?
Yeah, and I was just thinking back to like the first couple of years I was on the beat when Hugh Jackson was the coach, and they were going to Pittsburgh at 1-14 and 0-15, and going against Landry Jones in those games, and just how different this week. Like the Browns get to start Jeff Driscoll, and they're locked into the 5th seed, and they can kind of play whoever they want. It's a good problem to have for a team that frankly needed. They get this mini bye after the Thursday night game against the Jets, and now they get a chance to get some of their key starters some rest here. They've talked a few times this week, like they've earned this and they're going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, and we forget, it's been talked a lot this week, but I mean, they had the bye week as soon as you possibly could there in week 5, and nobody could have foreseen all of the injuries. But to me, Dan, and being able to listen to Kevin Stefanski and you guys are out there, it almost seemed like a no-brainer. Like, it's a topic. Are they going to rest? But it seemed like, man, this is absolutely probably not a hard one for Coach Stefanski and company.
Yeah, and especially when you look at last year with like a team like the Chargers. Now, their situation was a little different. They actually clinched the 5 seed to go play Jacksonville, which is where the Browns might be here in a few days. But they clinched the 5 seed right before their game kicked off last year. But Brandon Staley still played his starters. They ended up losing Mike Williams in that game to a back injury. And so, I mean, that right there is a cautionary tale in its own right. If you have a chance to basically go into a week game planning with some backups, understanding that you're going to give starters kind of this game off, and especially with all the injuries this team has had anyway, like this was just a no-brainer. You don't play guys in this game. You don't treat this game like anything more than it is.
So do we have any Jeff Driscoll fun facts for Sunday's contest?
I have no Jeff Driscoll fun facts, honestly, except I did say on our podcast yesterday, I almost picked the Bengals because I was going to say, I mean, I did end up picking the Bengals, but the reasoning I was going to give was, come on, Jeff Driscoll can't come off a practice squad and win a game for the Browns, right? As if I haven't been paying attention to what's been happening all season long. So I wouldn't rule anything out from Jeff Driscoll on Sunday.
Yeah, he doesn't. I mean, now granted, it didn't take much from Flacco, but like, when did he actually get signed? I mean, refresh our memory when they actually like signed him and said, okay, we're going to play this guy.
It was Friday. They signed him Friday after the Jets game. So, I don't know exactly when he got here, but yeah, they signed him on Friday and they named him the starter on Wednesday. And I think it was probably trending that way. They just hadn't told us yet. But it's been a very quick turnaround for him. So, he should be somewhat familiar with this system because in Arizona, obviously the OC there is Drew Petzing, who was here for a long time and is a longtime friend of Kevin Stefanski. So he should at least be ready to come in and run a system similar to what they do in Arizona. But you want to talk about a whirlwind. That's what he's facing right now.
We're talking Browns with our buddy Dan Lobby. Again, the Browns will take on the Bengals in Cincinnati. Nothing to play for. Guys will be resting as they should and hopefully get on the bus around, what's Kevin Stefanski's dream? About 4:30, ready to go, everybody healthy and on our way back up 71.
We're all hoping that this game's over by about 4. We've had so many long games though, and you're not really supposed to talk about it, but I guess I already have. We're hoping this game's over by about 4:00. The locker room goes quickly, and they actually fly to Cincinnati, so they'll even get home a little bit faster. But we're all back on I-71 heading north pretty quickly on Sunday night.
Dan, if really, and this is great when this is the biggest story out of Berea, but yesterday I think it did raise a few eyebrows, myself included. So Mary Kay asked the question about Jim Schwartz and said, okay, so do you have aspirations to coach? And I saw your guys' stand-up in Berea, and I was thinking the same thing Mary Kay said, like, we were expecting him to give the standard. We're worried about, just winning against Cincinnati and get ready. And he was very candid. He said, yeah, I wouldn't mind another shot. How surprising was that? And what do you make of those comments?
I was a little surprised that he did kind of come out and say it and didn't just give the safe answer on that one. But And you know what? I almost wondered if he might say, "Hey, I've been a head coach before. Maybe not, in these exact words, but look, I've been a head coach before. He had his health issues. Maybe he's not quite ready for that yet." But he wasn't shy about saying that you of course you aspire to a top job. And I think for Browns fans, I understand why they would be stressed about that, right? Jim Schwartz came in here, and he's a big reason why they are where they are now. But this is also a good sign for the Browns when you have coaches, whether it's a veteran guy like Jim Schwartz or young guys who are getting opportunities to be coordinators or head coaches. That means your organization is doing something right. And that means that you have good coaches in the building who can go on and get promotions elsewhere, or that you can promote to higher positions here. So obviously, it would be hard to replace Jim Schwartz. We've seen what some of the brain drain has done. We've seen it over the years with the Patriots. They've kind of finally, over the last few years, kind of hit some of that brain drain that's happened in Philly this year. But as long as you have your processes in place to replace the right guy or promote the right guy, whatever it is, I think you could survive it. But this is actually a good thing for the Browns to have coaches to have a team that's good enough where other teams want to come and raid you for coaches.
Yeah, and I would imagine, Dan, I mean, going through just kind of off the top of our heads here, talking about like which teams not only are available but will be available. I can't imagine him not getting some serious calls from some prospective teams.
You'd have to at least interview him. I mean, how could you not? And
Yeah.
again, this is a guy that's been a head coach, and I know maybe it didn't quite end the way he wanted it to in Detroit, but he was taking over an 0-16 team at the time, and just like his mentor, a guy who brought him into the NFL, Bill Belichick. Like, I don't know, mentor might be too strong a word, but obviously he came in with Belichick. This is a guy that needed a second chance and got a second chance to become a head coach and has been successful. And it's funny. Jim is not. He's in his 50s still. I think some people view him as maybe a little older than that, but he's still, a youngish guy. Maybe not as young as some owners are looking for, but he's still got years left for sure. And I would be shocked if he didn't at least get some interviews.
It's interesting because and I'll raise my hand. I'm as guilty as anyone. Maybe it's the gray hair. But I was, earlier last week, I was thinking about this, and I did not realize he was only in I just assumed he was like maybe mid-60s. So it doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I was the same way. Like, I remember at one point after they hired him, I Googled and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, he's a lot younger than I thought he was. So, yeah, and again, maybe nothing materializes, right? Because I still think owners are in love with offensive head coaches, and I still think that they still skew a little younger when they want to hire guys and make a splash. But Jim Schwartz, if he gets in a room, he's going to have a chance to really impress an owner and impress a GM with what he can do.
So would it be easier to say and ask who is playing that might catch? Because here's the other thing, and I was talking to Miles Simmons from Pro Football Talk, spent some time here in Cleveland. Had him on the other day, and he's like, what about a proposal kind of like September call-ups in baseball where week 18, the practice squad is unlimited, just so, maybe you're able to fill – because, you still have to field a team even though you're trying to rest guys. So would it be easier just to ask you, are there – give us a few names of guys that we thought might be sitting that are actually going to be playing?
So we've been trying to figure that out, right? So the sure things that aren't playing, right? You would think it would be Myles Garrett. We know that, Joe Flacco. I think guys who are starters who might have to play, you kind of have to look at. I don't think Greg Newsome will play in this game. He didn't practice today, so I would be surprised if he played. But does Martin Emerson need to get some time, right? Because you need some corners. So maybe he's a guy that you circle. You look at the linebacking core. I don't know where you would consider like Tony Fields as far as the depth chart is concerned, but he's a guy that's played, meaningful snaps this year. He'd probably have to continue doing that. On the line, you've probably got to play at least one of your tackles just because you're already thin there to begin with. So I think that's an area to look at. And what are they going to do at running back? Like, I suppose they would sit Jerome Ford, but does that mean Kareem Hunt has does he carry the ball a bunch? I don't know if you want that. Is this just a game where you run Pierre Strong into the ground? I think those are kind of the areas I'd look at as corner. running back and your O-line. I just think the numbers there are such that you'd have to play some guys in those spots, at least a little bit.
So not necessarily just looking at this game, but Dalvin Cook was available, and of course immediately, I think anytime anybody becomes available, the Browns got to look at him. But Dalvin Cook does have the history with Kevin Stefanski in Minnesota, possibly still some tread on those tires. Do you think the Browns were ever at all seriously interested in acquiring Dalvin Cook?
I don't know that they were. I wouldn't have minded them, kicking the tires on him and seeing if he could come in here and help you a little bit. Obviously, Baltimore ends up signing him, and it would be such a Browns thing to go to Baltimore in a playoff game and Dalvin Cook rips off 100 yards. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know if he has that left in the tank, but I'd have been interested in them maybe bringing in Dalvin Cook and taking a look at him, especially because he has that previous relationship with Kevin Stefanski. But I think they're happy with the running backs they have. I think they're happy with how Jerome Ford's developed, and I think they like what they've got in that room.
As far as some of the injuries, we saw the nasty, kind of scary injury that Elijah Moore had. How is he coming along, and do we think that he will be available hopefully for that first round of the postseason?
I mean, I can't believe he was back in practice this week, and he's practiced all 3 days that we've been out here. And so that means he's progressing through that concussion protocol pretty quickly. I would imagine they're going to hold him out of this game. That would be the smart thing to do. But based on kind of where he's at right now, it seems like he's trending towards coming back, whether it's against Jacksonville, Houston, Indianapolis, whoever they end up playing. It looks like he's trending towards getting out of that protocol and coming back.
Hey, Dan, Pro Bowlers announced yesterday Browns with 5, Denzel Ward, Joe Bitonio, David Njoku, Myles Garrett, and Amari Cooper. Anybody stand out? Like the first name that stands out to you that was a snub would be?
I've got to start with Dustin Hopkins.
I agree.
I think he was the best kicker in the AFC. I think Justin Tucker, look, nothing against Justin Tucker, obviously, maybe the greatest kicker of all time. I think he gets in on his name this year over a guy like Dustin Hopkins. And, at least Hopkins was an alternate, but Martin Emerson, a guy I mentioned earlier, like I think he should have at least been an alternate, if not in the game itself. So I think those two guys are kind of the snubs that really stand out to me.
All right, last thing for you, buddy. We appreciate your time as always. Dan Lobby with Cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. We're going to talk about this in a bit. Jacksonville, Houston, and Indianapolis are the possibilities. Is there one that you think the Browns match up the best against of those 3?
So we've kind of been talking about this, and I think for whatever reason, Jacksonville is the team that scares me the least. And I'm not sure why, because it's like, okay, they've got a Super Bowl winning coach. I like Doug Peterson, but Trevor Lawrence is banged up. It seemed like the Browns didn't have much trouble with them when they played them earlier this season. Now, you don't want to get too caught up in that stuff because things are different in the playoffs. But I think Jacksonville is actually the team that I would almost prefer they play. And I'm just a little more nervous about Houston just because of the CJ Stroud factor and how good he is and how dynamic he is. But I would think I might put Jacksonville at the bottom of the list. It's Jacksonville or Indy.
Yeah, I would actually. I'm with you on Jacksonville. The team I think that kind of scares me a little bit is Indianapolis, because if we go back to that game, Shane Steichen had a good game plan, kind of attacked the man coverage, got him out of man, got to zone, and then it was, rub routes and stuff like that. But, yeah, I'm with you. I think Jacksonville, I think initially people think, oh, no, you don't want to go to Jacksonville. 1-4, I think, their last 5 games, and they are pretty banged up. But we shall see. It's going to be an interesting seat for us as we watch on Sunday with absolutely nothing pertaining to the Browns and this season and just getting ready for week 1. But, hey, buddy, we appreciate the time as always, and we'll talk to you next week getting ready for whoever it's going to be in that wild card round. Thank you, pal.
Yep, sounds great. Talk to you later.
All right, Dan Lobby, Cleveland.com, and the Plain Dealer. This is one of the strangest tweets that I haven't heard this, and at first I thought, well, it's got to be a troll. But I thought if our buddy and the great John Telitz responded to this guy, I think there's something to it. So check this out. So Jim Schwartz, as I said, the biggest news coming out of Berea yesterday was Jim Schwartz basically saying yeah, I guess I would be interested in a head coaching gig if, whatever. So, okay, fine. Scares Browns fans a little bit. He's had a huge part in this year's success. So this kid Corey, or guy Corey, I don't know who he is. He tweeted this. If Jim Schwartz gets a job as head coach next year, it would be smart for the Browns to pursue former defensive coordinator Joe Woods to replace him. He says, I'm not making this up. Joe deserves a fair shot after he developed this Browns defense into the force that it is this season. With Joe as the DC, the Browns would not miss a step. Now, John Telich, being the class guy that he is, unlike myself, I thought he was very kind. Could have responded a different way. John responded, Corey, ... Jim has these guys playing free and to their strengths. Joe didn't as much. That's putting it mildly. You don't walk this back. I have not heard anyone. Like, this kid's got to be on an island that if Jim Schwartz, we don't want him to go, period. But if he were to go, this dude thinks that Joe Woods deserves it. Now, I'm not about criticizing Joe Woods any more than he already has been, but to say that he developed the Browns defense, they had talent. If anything, it was, you have all this talent. How can you be this bad defensively? So to say he developed this defense, but then to say he deserves a fair shot, he had more than a fair shot. I mean, they tried to give him every last opportunity to figure it out, and he didn't. I'm baffled by that tweet, Bo. Baffled.
Chico, I think JT took the bait because that's just such an absurd. It is a turd take. It's absurdly turdly. But with that said, Chico.
So you're thinking, yes, Bo.
I think that bridge is burned. There is no returning to Joe Woods. There's absolutely zero chance in the universe that ever happens again.
Okay, so it was probably a troll. I'm glad that I'm not the only one. So even the great JT John Telich can fall for that. But yeah, nobody. But
I just don't think any fan could be that obtuse, Chico.
How now? Explain the definition of obtuse and why that would be obtuse. You can't, can you?
I think it has something to do with lack of self-awareness. What's the word? It's another O word that I'm blanking on right now because you put me on the spot. But obliviousness to reality.
Okay. All right. Well, Bohm, thank you. That was I figured that was just because that's one of those words that in the past you've tried to sneak in there on occasion.
Well, it's a Shawshank reference.
Yes, it is. Andy Dufresne to the warden when he said, what did he say? A month in the hole? And he said, or no. I know what he said. When Andy Dufresne basically told him, like, hey, there's a guy saying that he knows who it was that did the crime. It wasn't me. So how about, and then he just says, yeah, whatever. That's funny, but nobody's going to believe you. How can you be so obtuse? 30 days in the hole.
Nailed it.
Not really. I tried.
Better than my definition of obtuse.
It's all right. Tell you what, we're going to take a quick break. We come back. The question I posed to Dan Lobby, I want to pose to you folks out there. And if you can want to chime in, follow us on Twitter at Chico Show CLE. Also on YouTube, type in the Chico Borman Show. If you have not already, hit subscribe. You'll be set to go. Who would be the team you would most like to face? And yeah, I know, before anyone hits me with, hey, we're not taking anybody for granted. I know, it's not that. But I think there's definitely a team that, well, and even if you just go back and look at what the Browns did against these three this year. We'll talk about that when we come back, get your thoughts on it as well. Coming up top of the hour, we mentioned that the Browns have nothing to play for, but that is anything but the case in South Beach coming up on Sunday night as the Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins tangle. Winner takes all, loser, And And we'll talk to Sal Capaccio. He is the sideline reporter for the Buffalo Bills. We'll be back with more of the Chico Borman Show right after this on the Big Play Sports Network. And we are back, Chico Borman Show on a Friday, Football Friday, but yeah, not a whole lot as far as, I mean, I don't even know if you're looking forward to it. It's almost like this is, how do I want to say this? And it's a good thing, but I just get this out of the way, right? Let's just, play the game. Cleveland, Cincinnati, beginning of the year. Hell, think back to after that first game, right? Cleveland, the Browns just absolutely destroyed the Bengals. And I remember Bengals fans, hell, Browns fans, I said it too, oh man, that rematch is going to be something, right? It sure as hell will be. Get ready for Jeff Driscoll and Jake Browning, ladies and gentlemen. Come on down.
Chico, do you think that the Browns winning or losing this game could affect the draft status? You could be picking, instead of 26th, you could be picking 25th if you lose this game?
Like the Bengals, you're saying?
No, the Browns.
They don't have a first rounder.
Well, no, not first rounder.
Oh.
But come on. This is the Browns we're talking about, Chico. Those 5th and 6th rounders, those are big.
Yeah, I'm going to – it might, but I don't think anybody, nor should they, be thinking about that on Sunday afternoon. As I said earlier, this is the perfect opportunity to get in good graces with your significant other. Pretend that, you matter to me more than a Browns game. Yeah, I love the Browns. Of course I do. But if you think that every once in a while I don't put the Browns on the back burner and say, honey, what would you like to do? Would you like to go to a play? Would you like to go bowling? Would you like to go out to dinner? Would you like to go see Mike Bohm's band play? Somebody might want to do that. I mean, Bohm, if you were playing a solo act somewhere, I might consider that.
I was thinking about hitting an open mic last night, but yeah, it did not come to fruition.
Do you do that often?
From time to time, I need the stage. I love being on stage. I love performing. It's my favorite place to be.
Now, see, what's interesting is, like, you're not the most comfortable, which is okay here. Like, in this, maybe it's me. Like, I mean, you're comfortable, but you're not, like, but, like, with the stage, I mean, like, people have said to me, like, boy, that doesn't make you, well, no, I mean, we've been doing it. But for you, it's the stage. Like, that's your sanctuary, Boom.
It is, Chico. It's my escape. It's the place where I feel like I can live totally in the moment and just immerse myself in the present. And I have no fears of like going too over the top, or it's easy to let loose. And part of me, I feel like I don't like dancing in general, but when I have a guitar, it's hard not to.
An inside look at the very complicated life of one Michael Bohm. All right, Browns getting ready for the Bengals. Yes, we'll get more into that, or maybe we won't, coming up later in the first hour. Obviously talked about what really matters, getting ready for the postseason. I think it was a no-brainer. I thought Joe Flacco might play a quarter, but you know what? Come to think of it, why? Like, I think it makes sense. Some teams, like, for instance, I think Baltimore's an interesting team here, right? Baltimore it's not just, well, you're off this week, but you also have a bye. So, like, 2 weeks. Then I think you entertain that thought. Or if your team is just all of a sudden red hot to end the year, you just get in. Maybe your bye week wasn't the first bye week of the season, which was week 5, like the Browns. But, I mean, when you add everything up, it's like there is absolutely no reason to play these guys. None. And like I said, if they lose 48-zip, I don't want to hear anybody say, well, you could have played. No. This is just get this thing over with, running clock. I think they still have that in high school. When the lead gets to be too much, the clock just runs continuously. But as we look forward, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Houston. I'm with Lobby on this one. Of the three, I'd feel much better going to Jacksonville than Houston or Indianapolis. Now, Houston doesn't. C.J. Stroud is Offensive Rookie of the Year. C.J. Stroud is outstanding. C.J. Stroud in the passing game, as you would expect, has been like hit or miss. On top of that, they're missing some key guys. The defense is just Houston's defense. Indianapolis is the team that I fear the most, without a doubt. And I realize that the Browns, are not the same team that they were back when they played that game, and same for Indianapolis. But like the scheme, the philosophy doesn't change for the Browns. I mean, they play in your face press man coverage, and you saw Indianapolis running a lot of the rub routes, the pick routes, stuff like that and they got him out of that man coverage, got him in the zone, and then all of a sudden it was just, we're going to pick apart the middle of the field. And they did that. Decent run game. And I think more than anything else, I think Shane Steichen, who was in the conversation with, but should not be given head coach of the year over Kevin Stefanski. Shane Steichen is a very, very good offensive mind. Shane Steichen And again, I'm not to say this is the sole reason for Philadelphia's struggles, but Shane Steichen had a lot to do with what the Eagles did last year and how dominant they were, and Jalen Hurts was. Remember Anthony Richardson before he got hurt was off to a good start, and it was like, wow, Shane Steichen, the guy knows what he's doing. And I think Indianapolis would be the toughest matchup when it comes to scheme, when it comes to personnel. And yes, I'm basing that a lot on, previous, but also Jacksonville. Like I said, Jacksonville's been ice cold. They've lost 4 or 5. Lawrence is banged up. Other guys are Christian Kirk, his top receiver, is still out with that core muscle injury. And when he's been out, Trevor Lawrence has really struggled himself too. So give me Jacksonville. Okay, give me Houston. Indianapolis, I still think they can beat all 3 of those teams, don't get me wrong. But Indianapolis would be the one that I think would give them the toughest game.
I think that's interesting, Chico, because at first glance, I wouldn't have picked Indianapolis as the team that scares me the most. But now that I think about it, I'm inclined to agree with you. My first thought is obviously Houston. If you're the Browns, you haven't faced C.J. Stroud yet. Now, that Joe Flacco was able to carve up that Texans secondary, which certainly
360 was it? 3 touchdowns, something like that.
Yeah, plenty of reason for encouragement in that regard. Jacksonville is interesting to me because you're right; they have been ice cold. But Trevor Lawrence has not been playing up to his standard, what you'd expect out of Trevor Lawrence. And the biggest fear for me, if you wind up being matched up against Jacksonville, is that Trevor Lawrence just suddenly finds it. Playoffs, obviously, the implications are a little bit bigger. And if Trevor Lawrence is able to return to form, that scares the hell out of me, Chico. It feels like it could be possible. Maybe he needs an offseason to refresh. He's not playing like he's capable of right now.
Yeah, he is no doubt. He is nowhere near 100%. And then, like I said, it's almost like you factor in the fact that he is nowhere near 100%, and he would be without, we think, Christian Kirk. And even if Kirk were to return, and Jacksonville obviously were, because let's, for these scenarios, the purposes, if Jacksonville wins, they are in. If they lose, then it's the winner of Houston or Indianapolis. So, I mean, this is going to it could get messy. Jacksonville, I think Tennessee is going to give them a game, though. I mean, Mike Vrabel's team, I love Vrabel's presser. That was awesome. They're like, Vrabes, is there anything to the idea of, tanking or just kind of, maybe just ready for the season to end? And he just looks at the reporter. He's like, no. Losing sucks. That's what I think he may have dropped an F-bomb in there too.
He did. He bleeping hates losing, Chico.
Good old Vrabel. Yeah, good old Vrabel.
You have any other thoughts you want to offer here? He just put the reporter on blast.
That's right. He just kept looking at it. And that's not that is a guy that can be very intimidating. Very intimidating. Not only because he's 6'4", 260, former great player, whatever. But he can, when he wants to be a badass, a hard ass, he can be one. And he was during that presser. But I think Tennessee will give them game. And it wouldn't shock me. I can honestly tell you, it would not shock me if the Tennessee Titans upset the Jacksonville Jaguars. It would not shock me. It's in Tennessee. I realize Jacksonville's playing for everything, and Tennessee not really. But I could see Vrabel having those guys ready to go, and I could see Jacksonville. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is going to get to your point, Bohm, and not to knock your point. I would never do that. You know that. I don't think.
Never.
I don't think that Trevor Lawrence is just going to be able to. I mean, he has the talent. He has the capability. I just don't know physically if he's able to do that at this point in the year. It has been a long year for that dude. And even when he was healthy, it was very up and down. So, I don't know. Of all the teams, Indianapolis, the Texans, the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think I'd rather face Jacksonville, and the least favorite would be Indianapolis.
It's kind of wild, just the long road that is an NFL season, Chico, because I still distinctly remember like week 1, week 2, watching Trevor Lawrence make just some unbelievable throws and thinking, wow, he might have taken the next step. And now to be at this point for Lawrence, where it's like you're expecting mediocre quarterback play. It's kind of wild.
Speaking of Jacksonville, and not that it's still, mathematically and theoretically could still happen if they get into the playoffs, anything can happen, right? But Jacksonville they were kind of that sexy team. Everybody, they knew about Buffalo, and you knew about Baltimore and Miami, and the Jets had Aaron Rodgers, and the Chiefs in the AFC West, and the Chargers might be. But watch out for Jacksonville, and like every other storyline, it seems to have just in the air. Hasn't happened.
They got 8 or 9 wins like really quickly. And then it just seems like they've totally fizzled out.
Well, and I think it wasn't so much that. It was how they finished last year, too. Because it was like, and we all know, Herb was out of the building, and then all of a sudden, like Trevor Lawrence, it seemed like the perfect match, and he went off to end the season. Trevor Lawrence was balling to end the season last year. So it was like, oh, yeah, they're going to be the team. And it's interesting, all these the Buffalo Bills, we're going to talk to Sal Capaccio, their sideline reporter, coming up top of the hour. And here's a team that, they're a shoo-in, right? It's just a matter of, who's going to face them in the AFC Championship game. Because it felt like, okay, Buffalo's finally going to take that next step. And, they still might. I like them over the Dolphins, even though the Dolphins are at home. Dolphins are really banged up, which we'll talk about with Sal. I just don't buy the Dolphins. And I like Mike McDaniel. Think he's done a great job, obviously. But the whole paper tigers, that sort of thing, and I actually think their secondary is really, really hurting. You keep it away from Jalen Ramsey, easier said than done, but you keep it away from Jalen Ramsey, you start targeting other guys. I think Josh Allen could have a field day if Stephon Diggs can get going, and he's kind of been, I don't know what the deal's been with Stephon Diggs lately.
We're 18 weeks in, Chico, and the Dolphins still have not beat a team that was above 500, which you talk about paper lion, paper tiger, whatever the terminology is. I think this, to me, also the Bills are like the biggest X factor remaining in this playoff conversation.
See, I can't wait to ask Sal about that, too, at the top of the hour, because like everybody is saying that. I wonder if and I'm sure he probably feels that way. He's closest to the Bills, and I see it. But like, I wonder if somebody who's with them, every day thinks that, if Buffalo gets in, look out. They could absolutely just, you do have Josh Allen. You have star power. Defensively, I still think if they're going to go far, man, I think a guy like Matt Milano was, and I know I've said this all year, but Matt Milano just never, ever gets enough credit. One of the best, forget about linebackers, that dude's one of the best defensive players in all of football. And I feel like not having him, I know it's been a while, so they've adjusted, but not having him, if you're able to make it to the postseason, is a big deal. One college football note I want to get to is that the Buckeyes have their quarterback, Bohm. That's why Bohm looks a little tired and his eyelids a little heavy. Apparently, when this news broke, Bohm just completely, he was seen streaking on the streets of Beechwood and yelling, the Buckeyes are back, and Will Howard for Heisman and all sorts of stuff. Can you confirm or deny that, Bohm?
I did celebrate the Will Howard acquisition a little too hard last night, Chico.
I will say this. Like, I don't know how to feel. Other than to say I feel better, I don't know if I feel great. Like, I'm really glad that, and I know it's still going to be a competition, and technically it could be Devin Brown, it could be Lincoln Keenholz, Aaron Nolan, the 5-star, that his day is going to come. But it's clearly Will Howard's going to be their guy unless something crazy happens. But I feel better than one of those guys, but does that mean I feel good enough that I think Ohio State now all of a sudden is, I don't know what the offensive line's going to look like. Like, that's my big scare right now. And no, I'm not trying to live too much from the bowl game, but it wasn't like all year long. And really the past 2 seasons we've been saying, well, what's going on with the O-line? And well, what about this? Every time they get close to nailing that 4 or 5-star guy, that blue chipper, they can't quite close the deal. I had somebody, a good friend of mine from Ohio State, and he had said to me, like, as much as we praise and get so excited with all the wide receivers, and it is awesome what Brian Hartline's doing, without question. He's like, I wouldn't mind trading maybe 1 or 2 of those for blue chip offensive linemen. Like, as great as they're knocking it out of the park in the wide receiver room, it would be nice to have some of those linemen, blue chippers, commit.
Yeah, and I do wonder, Chico, how much NIL factors into that. Because I know, like, we heard Carson Hinsman on that podcast that Ohio State wasn't too happy with him appearing on, talking about offensive linemen walking in and demanding $1 million right off the rip. Right, and Ohio State's probably not going to pay an incoming player that, let alone an offensive lineman. So they're already in an adverse situation. And you talk about the receivers, guys like Jeremiah Smith, the number 1 ranked recruit amongst numerous recruiting outlets. This is a guy who came out and said that he turned down more money to come to Ohio State. And that's a sort of mentality that you'd like that from every position with the Buckeyes, but I don't know if offensive line is exactly one area where they're going to inspire recruits to take less money. And so that's a tough spot. And right now, like, these guys that are upperclassmen, they're Coach Stud's guys, the former offensive line coach. And now you bring in Justin Fry, who by all accounts is a great coach, but this was not his recruiting group. These were guys who Stud was lacking. I think that was a big reason why he was let go. Was his recruiting ability.
Name dropping and nickname dropping. I like it, Bohm. I like it. I would say the passion there. I love that. By the way, you telling that story, just like, I have no problem with the kids getting paid, but it's still so weird to hear, like, well, he turned down less money to stay at Ohio State. Like, those are that's what we hear throughout football, and that's the nature.
Welcome to the new world of college football, Chico.
Yeah. You know what I would love to know? Maybe some of these behind the scenes shows, Hard Knocks is like, and whatever, Netflix documentaries. Now I want to see what these meetings are like. I know they probably wouldn't show them, but like, all I can picture is, and I'm sorry, I know that I only reference like 3 or 4 movies. I only have that many in my arsenal, but I'm going to go back to Good Will Hunting. Like, you remember when Ben Affleck walks in, he's representing Matt Damon. Damon didn't want to go to the interview for the whatever long division job it was. And he's just like, I don't know, yeah, he's like $500. Your situation would be greatly enhanced right now if I had $500 in my pocket, which he then used to buy the picture of, their pictures on the house then on him. But and they're all scrambling. They're like, well, I've got 20. What about? And he's like, retainer. And he's got like the fuzzy wuzzy socks. He's got the high water pants going on. It's hilarious. But like, I would love to know, how quick do they get do they cut to that chase as far as NIL? Do they at least get through the pleasantries and then it's like, all right, hey, I don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste my time. I'm not coming here unless $1 million. Are they that brazen with it? Or do they make the parents like? I would love to hear how that goes down and how. I don't know. I don't mean to be dark about it, but like, how contentious does it get? Like, does a kid or a parent of a kid feel insulted, and then does the coach go back to, because it would be easy to go back to that old school mentality, like, you know what? You haven't proven anything. That's what you want to say. That's what you're thinking. But today's athletes, you can't say that. You can't think that way because you might lose them. So you can't say like, what do you mean you want $1 million, Junior? You haven't proven a damn thing.
It is interesting, though, to see the other side of it. And, like, for example, Ole Miss's running back hitting the transfer portal yesterday.
Yep.
This is a guy who was very highly touted, looking like could be considered a first-round pick when he does enter in the following year. It feels like the reason that he hit the portal was because Ole Miss was too caught up in paying these guys that they're trying to bring in. And so, like, on one hand, you kind of see where Ohio State's approach feels like understandable and how they're trying to do it the right way. They pay the guys that stay. And Ole Miss, meanwhile, what their approach sort of backfired. So this is kind of like not the first example, but this is one of the early big examples of like how it really is the wild, wild west, Chico. Like there's no right way to actually do this because there's a downside to every approach. It feels like.
I just want to see that behind the scenes. I'm very intrigued with, how that goes down and how, I'm sure there's got, just like everything else. I mean, we're talking about human beings, right? So some guys, some coaches are better negotiators or are more, I know what to say and when to say it and when to be tough and when not to be tough. So I would think it's the same thing in some of those type negotiations. Like you don't want to just roll over, but at the same time, you want to make it known like, okay, that's not going to happen. Anyway, folks, if you need bet credits for football season, the Big Play Network is presented by Tipico Sportsbook. The Tipico Sportsbook app has your traditional bets like the money line, spread, and point totals. But you can also lock in player props and check out our Big Play boosts every single week to back your favorite Cleveland teams and athletes with the best odds in Ohio. Get in the action. Load up for football season using promo code BIGPLAY100. You will get $100 of bet credits on us plus a $30 dog pound bet. Bet with the Big Play crew all season long with Tipico Sportsbook. All right. So Sal Capaccio will be joining us here at the top of the hour in just a bit. Bills sideline reporter, Bills and Dolphins. Look, there are a lot of games that there's nothing to play for. It's going to be tough because most of Sunday, you might catch a game or two. I don't even feel guilty saying I might not watch the entire Browns game. I mean, I'm certainly not glued in. But by Sunday night, we're all going to be watching Buffalo-Miami because I think the one thing that we keep hearing, and I'm curious to get Sal's thoughts on this when he joins us, is, well, look out. If the Bills are able to get in, and if they win on Sunday night in South Beach, they will indeed get in, that, boy, they could be extremely dangerous. Makes sense. Certainly makes sense. But curious what Sal would think about that as well. But that is without a doubt the game this weekend, Sunday night, as Buffalo takes on Miami. We'll step aside for just a moment. When we come back, we're talking Bills, we're talking Dolphins. Winner takes all from South Beach. Sal Capaccio, Bills sideline reporter, joins us. Chico Borman Show. More to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back. Chico Borman Show here on the Big Play Sports Network on this Friday afternoon. Good to have you along. And, of course, earlier in the hour, we talked to Dan Lobby with Cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. We're not used to these circumstances. I mean, nothing to play for in Week 18, sure, but nothing to play for in Week 18 because you're waiting to see who you play in the first round of the play. That's not a common occurrence here in Cleveland. In Buffalo, well, they've kind of made it they're right, seemingly, for the past few years as far as the playoffs go. And one of the teams that I think a lot of you're hearing everybody say it, if the Bills can find their way in, look out. Sal Capaccio, this guy's fantastic, is the sideline reporter for the Buffalo Bills and WGR in Buffalo. I had a chance, I was telling folks the story of you and I don't even know if you remember this. Years ago, when I had you on, when I was at the Fan, and we reminisced about the Bills-Browns playoff game.
Yes.
How we both I think we were about the same age, and just that was like, for me, it was the happiest moment of my life. For you, it was a crushing blow.
I do remember. I mean, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it was 1989 season, and my dad, I was a sophomore in high school. My dad drove me and a couple of my buddies to the game. And it was the old Cleveland Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Up until the Bills lost with 13 seconds left against Kansas City, that epic game. That was the greatest football game I'd ever attended. It was incredible back and forth. And of course, the two greatest football games then in that regard would be Bills crushing losses because the Browns won. And I remember leaving, and these girls, these women were walking up to us, high school teenagers, take the 90 home, go back to, oh my God, it was horrible. It's horrible.
Well, I want to apologize for them because normally, very, very classy here to the opposing teams. Now, when I watch replays of that, I'm always waiting for Ronnie Harmon to actually catch that. I'm telling you, man, I thought for sure, there's no way he dropped that pass. It was right there.
You should have caught it. And what people forget is, earlier in the game, the Bills kicker at the time would have been Norwood, I guess. He missed the field goals. He slipped the extra point, and he slipped. So because of that, the Bills needed the 4 at the end instead of the 3 to just tie the game and go to overtime. But that's what happened in that situation. That was muddy game. I think Kosar and Kelly both threw for over 400. Webster Slaughter had a big day. Andre Reed had a big day. Thurman was amazing. It was an incredible game.
Basically when the K-Gun was born, right? The K-Gun offense?
Yeah. Because of that game. Because they played so well in that game with the K-Gun, they decided the next year just to use it all the time. And that's what they did. And they wound up going to 4 straight Super Bowls the following year.
Yep. Oh, man. Good times. And, of course, there's been some droughts in between for both of these clubs. But Buffalo Bills getting set to take on the Miami Dolphins this Sunday night. Win and you're in. I guess the obvious question is, I'm sure the city of Buffalo, and we know here our passionate fans, and they're just as much so in Buffalo. How are they getting through the week waiting for this Sunday night matchup in South Beach?
A lot of nervous anticipation. I mean, the Bills aren't in yet. It's wild. Have you ever seen a situation where a team could be the 2 seed with a win and maybe out of the playoffs with a loss? It's incredible. I mean, that's what this is right now. The Bills win. They win the division. They're the 2 seed, and everything that they wanted before the season is pretty much right there in front of them. If they lose, depending on how the Ravens and Steelers goes, depending on how the Jags and Titans go, they could be out of the playoffs. Now, if one of those games goes their way, they could win and lose and be in anyway. But I think Bills fans are very confident with how they played against Miami. Josh Allen has really owned the Dolphins. I mean, it's incredible. 37 touchdowns. I think total with rushing and passing, 37 or 38 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. It's incredible. He's been amazing. The Bills beat him here 48-20 earlier this season. And Miami's really banged up, obviously. Really banged up.
Yep.
And they don't need this game, Miami. They want to win. Of course they do. They want to win a championship. I'm not going to dismiss that. But they're in already, right? But at the same time, man, if it's one game on the line, you go to South Florida, just a few mistakes could cost your season. And that's why I think Bills fans are pretty nervous as well.
Sal, take me through, much like we've said many times here, this feels like 3 or 4 seasons all wrapped in one with the way everything's played out. I would imagine kind of the same in Buffalo. So many different things. Okay, beginning of the year, there's talk about Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. Are they getting along? And then, to Sean McDermott as he lost the team. What was that all about? Was it overblown, or was there some real, just tension, I guess, in that locker room?
No, I don't think there was ever tension in the locker room. Not really sure about that. And, this really was more in the offseason than ever was in the season. This was during OTAs and minicamp when Stefan didn't show up for any of the voluntary stuff, which he really doesn't sometimes anyway. He works out on his own. He's a workout guy in the offseason. Some guys don't. But then when the first day of mandatory minicamp came around, he was there, but then he left. And Sean McDermott said, well, he was concerned about it because of the way the question was phrased, and then that caused an issue. And at the end of the day, he came back. They got on the same page. He said glowing things about Josh. Josh said glowing things about him, which he always has. He showed up for training camp on time, and he did a media session right away. And I asked him point blank. I said, "You've said before you want to retire a Buffalo Bill. Is that still the case?" And he looked at me. He goes, 100. He said, 100%, sir. Call me sir. And it's from there. There's been no issue. Now, what's happening lately is he's not getting the production as many of the targets. Production's down. People are making an issue out of it because they think here's this guy that's going to make an issue out of it. That hasn't happened, though, to be honest with you. Like, Stefan's been all about winning, and he's never had a peep about not getting targets, not getting the ball. He's only talked about winning. Now, I would also say he hasn't talked to media in a few weeks, so I'm not really sure everything that's going on, but the bottom line is there's been no issue. There's been no blow up. There's been no distraction other than us talking about what's going on.
Yeah, you're right, and that's a great sign for Bills fans and the team that, Stephon Diggs is saying, hey, all I want to do is win. That's all I care about. That said, though, is that a concern right now, like with fans that, hey, what's going on with Diggs? It's just a matter of, hey, the defenses are – but they've always kind of targeted him and keyed on him. What do you think it is?
Well, I think it's more of what is going on with the offense, what's going on with the passing offense, because that hasn't been great lately, but they're still winning games. They have found other guys in the passing game, especially Dalton Kincaid's had a nice rookie year, James Cook out of the backfield, but this is your number one receiver. And if you look at the stats, he has been getting targets still. He had 11 targets twice in the last 5-6 weeks, I think it is, but the production's not there as much. And yes, I do think that's partly because teams are focusing on him a little bit. He's also 30 years old, and he's played a lot of football, right? Stefan's always been available. He's not a guy that gets hurt. Yep. He's played in the playoffs a lot. He's played deep into the playoffs. So I wonder if the wear and tear on his body is just kind of getting to him a little bit. But what the Bills have pointed out is, look, his snap count usage is down too, and they'll tell you, they'll tell you, well, it's also because we're running the ball more, and he's not in some of these packages where we run the ball, and that's actually true because I think he was on the field for every pass play last game, but when he was out, they were running. Now maybe you could make an argument they shouldn't be tipping their hand like that. I get it. But I think it's more of a concern of that, where the offense is. But that other part comes into play, which is we know that he's a little bit older now, and he's never been a real separator necessarily. He's been a route runner and a guy, and people are wondering if that's happening. I'll also tell you, I think Josh Allen's been a little off lately. Mm-hmm. First play of the game against the Chargers, he misses Stephon on a screen. Later, he misses him again, missed him for a deep ball for what would have been an easy touchdown last week. If he hits one of those deep balls that he threw him each of the last 2 weeks, we're not even having this conversation because he's over 100 yards. He's got a touchdown each game.
Bill sideline reporter Sal Capaccio joining us here, Chico Borman Show on the Big Play Sports Network. So you kind of took me where I wanted to go next, and that was you mentioned running the ball and an emphasis to run the ball more. Is that basically the biggest takeaway of Ken Dorsey being replaced, and do you think that had to happen for this offense to get going a little bit?
I don't know if it had to happen. They had to have better execution, because I'm always a guy that starts with execution first anyway. But I do think there's been a difference between Dorsey and Joe Brady, and they have leaned more in the running game. And I don't think it's been a coincidence that even, James Cook, some of his best games have come. Now, he had some nice games under Ken Dorsey for sure, but James Cook has had a really fantastic year. He's third in the league in rushing, I think, like fifth in yards from scrimmage. So he's been a guy they've leaned on a little more, and they want to do that. What's wild is, for how long have we heard, well, the Bills asked Josh Allen to be Superman. They shouldn't ask him. And here in Buffalo, we've been saying, no, we need more Josh Allen running. They didn't do it a lot earlier in the year. And that's a really big part of what they do. Imagine Ravens fans or people telling the Ravens they shouldn't run Lamar Jackson very much. I mean, that's who he is. That's how you get some of the big plays you get. Well, what's happened lately is Josh has actually been a part of the running game again. And I think that's really helped him in the running game overall. But also, like I said, the passing game just has been a little bit off. But yes, I do think that the switch to Joe Brady has helped the run game. I think conceptually it's helped it. Also, just philosophically, like what they want to do and who they want to be as they go into the playoffs and the weather turns here a little bit.
Yeah, I got to say, watching James Cook, and we know he's, Dalvin's younger brother. James Cook, though, to me, first of all, he's extremely explosive. We saw him in that Dallas game. It was like unbelievable.
Yeah.
But on top of that, despite he's not built like his brother, or at least weighs as much, but I think he's a really good between the tackles runner, at least better than maybe people give him credit for because of his size.
He is, and that's partly for the scheme that they run. They have holes, and they open up space. They're not running him into the middle of the defense like Derrick Henry might do, right? And you see him plow, and you're going to just stop. You're not going to stop me because I'm so big. You're right. The way the Bills, run their gap scheme and their zone running scheme, I should say, is to create some of those holes. And they do a lot of pulling and trapping even within the tackle box there. And they run the tackle trap a lot with Deion Dawkins, who is having a fantastic year, made a Pro Bowl. But I think that's part of the reason. You're right. Now, he's not the kind of guy you want to give him necessarily 25 times like that.
Sure.
But you can run him like that, and he'll be okay. And overall, you still want to give him the volume in the pass game and the run game, but you want to make sure that you're keeping his wear and tear of his body, of course, because of the size.
Sal, looking at this game coming up on Sunday night, injuries, you mentioned it earlier. The Dolphins are decimated, certainly on the offensive side, but also on the defensive side. Budda Baker, who's outstanding. I mean, is this a case where, look, they have Jalen Ramsey, but you just pick on all those other guys, and it feels like a game where Josh Allen, as much as we're talking about the running game, Josh Allen could have a field day on Sunday night.
Yeah, we'll see. It's Jerome Baker, by the way. Budda's a great player too, though.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he is a great player, but Jerome Baker,
he's a Buckeye.
Jerome Baker might actually play in this game. We'll see. But Xavier Howard's been ruled out, and that's a big deal for the Miami Dolphins at corner opposite Jalen Ramsey. Now, they didn't have Jalen Ramsey the last time they played the Bills. In week 4, he was still out. But Xavier Howard is going to be out for this game, apparently. And then on top of that, I think the biggest thing, Chico, is, no Jalen Phillips and no Bradley Chubb now. And that really mitigates their pass rush, right? So I do think that, I don't know about a field day. I mean, Vic Fangio's still smart, and it's a division rival, and they know each other's personnel. They still have Christian Wilkins, and Van Ginkel's playing really well on that side of the ball. So, I do think they'll have a plan. What I think the Dolphins might do is just invite the Bills to run and say, we're not going to let Josh Allen beat you. We'll let James Cook run. We're going to buckle up inside the 20s and inside the 20, and we're going to take the ball away a couple times because, Josh Allen's not going to be patient enough, and he's going to try and go deep, or he's going to try and make a big play, and we're going to stop him. So I think that could very well be the case. Now, on offense, interestingly enough, Mike McDaniel did not yet rule out Jalen Waddle or Raheem Mostert. They're going to work today, apparently, at practice and see how it goes. But man, those are tough. Those are ankle injuries. They're already in the playoffs. I don't know how much they want to play them to be possibly compromised for the following week. And then, of course, you have that horrible incident at Tyreek Hill's home with the fire that happened. He's back at practice, but that's got to be on his mind. So obviously we're glad all around that he's okay and everybody's okay, but that's something that they're dealing with as well. On top of the fact that he's dealing with an ankle injury as well.
He's in a walking boot, isn't he? Or wasn't he seen?
Yeah, he was seen in a walking boot. Now, look, I mean, as someone who's, around the Bills a lot and been on NFL sidelines, and I will tell you that it's a lot of times just precaution. Like they put players in boots so they're not doing something when they leave the facility or when they're walking around, but they can practice. It's just kind of keeping it off. But yes, I mean, it's notable, of course, and he's listed with an ankle injury. Now for the Bills, Josh Allen is on the injury report. He got banged up a little bit last week with his left shoulder and the neck, and it was a stinger. He said he never felt a stinger before, and it felt funky, which I think is wild. That he's never had a stinger before with all the football he's played at that position. But he's also got a right finger injury. They didn't specify which finger, but somewhere on the right hand, he's got a finger injury. But Sean McDermott said he's good to go. Josh said he's good to go. So we'll see. And then the good news for the Bills, too, is getting Micah Hyde back and healthy the last couple of weeks. He had been dealing with his neck and stinger issue, but came out of last week's game good. He was limited at practice earlier in this week, but he's a full participant on Thursday and Friday.
They've done a good job, the Bills have, as far as rebounding from some of those injuries early on. I've said plenty of times, my producer's going to roll his eyes, I think Matt Milano is easily one of the most underrated players in football. How have they been able to bounce back from those injuries?
Well, I don't know why anybody would roll their eyes at that. He was a first-team All-Pro last year. I mean, this is a guy who's a fantastic player, and I think he was playing at an all-pro level before he got hurt. He got hurt in London against Jacksonville, broke his leg. We found out recently no ligament damage, which is great, and he'll be back for next season and ready to go for off-season workouts. But that was a really, really big blow to this defense. They've mitigated his loss with kind of a committee, and it's been Tyrell Dodson who's plays on the rundowns, and then they bring in actually in the pass downs. This is, I think, where Sean McDermott comes in as a fantastic defensive mind. Tyrell Dodson was mainly filling in for Matt Milano when he got hurt, and he was getting abused in pass coverage. So what the Bills did was say, all right, we're going to play him on rundowns. Then on pass downs, they're going to move Jordan Poyer from safety down to linebacker as an extra linebacker and a dime package and go with another safety and Taylor Rapp. And that's really been great. But how about this, Chico? I think the biggest thing for the Bills defensively with these injuries, they lose Tre'Davious White week 4. They make maybe the best trade of the entire season in bringing Rasul Douglas over from the Green Bay Packers, who has played phenomenal football since he's been here. And really, no disrespect to Tre'Davious White. He's outstanding. But they have not had any sort of drop-off at their number 1 corner for a guy they traded midseason.
So I'll leave you with this, Sal. We appreciate the time. Really do. I know busy week for you. Sean McDermott, as we said, it's been a whirlwind season. There were times the rumblings were, is he safe? And is that pretty much gone? Or let's say, hypothetically, they fall short on Sunday night. What do you think the status with McDermott and that front office and everybody is?
Let me first start and say it's the NFL. You never know. It's a bottom line business. It's a results business. If you don't win, you could be out of a job, whether you're there for 1 year, 10 years, 20 years, doesn't matter. I would also tell you, though, that I don't think that this ownership, Terry Pagula and Kim Pagula, have an appetite to change Sean McDermott. They love what he brings to this organization, the stability he's brought with Brandon Beane, the way they work together in concert and symmetry. And the fact is, he's made the playoffs 6 out of 7 years in Buffalo, right? I mean, well, 5 out of 6, I guess now. This is year 7 after this team wasn't there for 17 straight years. And I think there's some goodwill that gets built up there, right? I think for sure. But you never know. It's the NFL. And if they feel, hey, we've hit our ceiling with Sean McDermott, we've had these teams that should be able to get to the Super Bowl. It hasn't happened. We need somebody else. We need an offensive mind, whatever it is, however that manifests itself. I would never discount it. I just don't think that Terry Pagula and Kim Pagula are people that really want to do something like that, given their relationship with him and what he's meant to this organization.
Going to be a fun Sunday night, and hopefully Bills fans are celebrating a playoff berth and a division title on Sunday evening. Follow him on Twitter. He's outstanding. At Sal Sports. Also, the podcast is a good one. I enjoy that. Always game day in Buffalo. Sal, really appreciate the time, buddy. Keep up the great work and hope to talk to you again real soon.
Yeah, you too. Maybe we're in line for another classic Bills-Browns playoff game sometime in the near future.
I like it. Thank you, buddy.
You got it, man.
All right, Sal Capaccio, again, sideline reporter for the Bills and GR in Buffalo. Interesting stuff there, I think, on a variety of different levels. One, Ken Dorsey, I mean, I know he said that, their execution was, he had to, and you don't like seeing somebody fired midseason or anything like that, but it was clear that once Joe Brady took over, it was, okay, not only are we going to focus more on the run game or at least give him some help. I wouldn't say, you do have Josh Allen. You're not going to focus solely on the run game, but it was even just, hey, you have James Cook. Send him in motion. Remember that Jets game right after they released him, and it was like, oh, my God, look at James Cook out of the backfield. Yeah, dude was an incredible pass catcher at Florida State. And he's a really, really big-time talent. So I'm pulling for the Bulls, or Bulls, and the Bulls, too, because they haven't had a great year. But I'm pulling for the Bills here. I don't know. I've always liked their fans because, again, I think – and don't forget – when the Browns were out and Art did what Art did, Bills fans were very welcoming, understanding. It doesn't mean that we root for them when they're playing the Browns or anything like that. I mean, but it's a passionate fan base. Hell, they jump on tables.
Not only that, Chico, but I don't know if you saw the video from last week. They were jumping on tables that were lit on fire. Like, just when you didn't think they could turn up the dial even more, they done did it.
And that's why I say they are so much like Cleveland fans. Like, you could see Browns fans doing that. Like, the Bills.
You could in the Muni lot.
The Bills founded it. They started it. But if you would have said, oh, that was the Browns, nobody would know the difference. They both, like, it's a blue collar, It's a cold weather, and they love their great tradition, and they love their football.
If the Browns were to match up with the Bills in the playoffs, Chico, I think you'd see more than a dozen tables being jumped upon by Browns fans in the Muni lot.
They were really on fire?
They were on fire. And fan caught fire too. And everyone's like, roll, damn it. And he's not rolling. He's just walking around. He's like, oh, I'm on fire. And then he finally rolls.
Yeah, that's when alcohol can be a very dangerous thing. I'm on fire? Yes, you are en fuego. And not in the Dan Patrick sense. You are literally en fuego. All right, we will take a timeout. When we come back, we'll play a little fair or foul. Also, not really a pick six, but we've got a couple predictions we want to. This Buffalo-Miami game, I think obviously the games we're going to be paying attention to with Jacksonville and Tennessee, Indianapolis, Houston, we'll be touching on those as well. All of that on the way as we roll through it on this Friday edition, the Chico Borman Show. More to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. What is this music, Paul?
You know what, Chico? I heard it. I was doing some exploration here on this soundboard. I kind of liked it. It's got like country anthem vibes.
It's also got like a bit of a tribal feel to it.
A little bit, yeah. I could see some chanting over this.
By the way, Bohm, I have to point this out before we get to fair or foul here on the Chico Borman Show on the Big Play Sports Network. Bohm is trending on Twitter. Is that you, Bohm, or is that...
Can't be. No way.
I mean, I'm not lying to you. So it's at 1,939. When I click on it, it has your account because I of course follow you because I'm a huge fan of yours. Now it also has Bohm Presents, an international comedy concert tours. You are so dynamic. Paul Bohm, he designed Dropbox, founder Teleport XYZ. What else we got? Alec Bohm. Breakout tweets in 2024. So your cousin Alex over there in Philly.
Shout out to my Bone brothers.
Yeah. So I don't know. Some might say it's got to be Alec Bohm. I want to believe that our own Michael Bohm is trending on Twitter for reasons that we can only imagine.
I want to believe it too, Chico.
Well, let's believe it. Michael Bohm, we'll just say Bohm is trending on Twitter. For these purposes, I say that. People here think it's Michael Bohm. So there you go. Congratulations, Bohm. Good job.
We made it, Chico.
Not me. That's all you. It's BOHM.
How about that?
1,934 posts trending, it says, on Twitter. All right. Without further ado, let's play a little fair or foul.
It appears I've become all the rage, Chico.
You are a huge deal. You know that.
All right. Well, I want to start off with this. So J.J. McCarthy addressed the media, and he had a pretty interesting quote, Chico. Now, firstly, he started things off by saying, quote, I don't want to say a crazy number, but I'd say a good number. 80% of teams in college football steal signs. It's just a thing about football. And then he went on to say, it's been around for years. We actually had to adapt. Because in 2020 and 2019, oh, by the way, before J.J. McCarthy was even at the U of M.
2020, they didn't play, did they? Or 2021, is he saying that they stole? One of those years they didn't play.
Well, he wasn't even there. J.J. McCarthy was not on the Wolverines roster at that point. That being said, he did say, back in 2020 and 2019, when Ohio State was stealing our signs, which is legal, we had to get up to the level that they were at, and we had to make it an even playing field. Fair or foul, Chico, J.J. McCarthy just admitted to knowing about this U of M cheating scandal.
Did you order the code red? You're goddamn right I did! Yeah, I mean, idiotic. First of all, why are you even focused on that? I mean, you're getting ready for the national championship. Like, I think more... And yeah, I know that people are going to say this is colored with, looking through an Ohio State lens. But it feels like Michigan still is absolutely enamored. While they want to say, like, oh, Ohio State. I don't hear Ohio State really saying a whole lot about it. But, like, Michigan continues with this whole, well, Ohio State was, they were spying on us, and Ryan Day's brother. And it was put to rest months ago. They had nothing to do with it. But, like, Michigan still seems, and now you're starting quarterback. If I'm Jim Harbaugh, and I know those two are BFFs, McCarthy and Harbaugh, but, dude, what are you doing? And then, yeah, you just basically admitted. Not good. Not good.
Yeah, just an awful look in my opinion.
Be honest with you. I was once a J.J. McCarthy fan, both as a player and kind of like just attitude. Hey, he wanted to go to Ohio State, whatever. But, huge talent. He's really, first of all, I think he's very much underwhelmed. And then making comments like that, just the way he acts, is just kind of like, I could do without him. So, yeah, not good. Not good.
Yeah, I don't know what he was thinking when he came out and said that. And the other interesting thing here.
Yes, Paul.
Former Cleveland Brown.
You all right, Paul? All right.
Excuse me.
Got some water for you.
Yeah. So former Cleveland Brown Chase Winovich. Actually, I don't know if you saw this, but he, I want to say it was Instagram. He sent out a story of he was with Connor Stallions in attendance for the Rose Bowl game. It was confirmed by Nicole Auerbach, college football reporter, that Connor Stallions was in fact in attendance for the Rose Bowl, decked out in Michigan gear, wearing the rose necklace after the game.
Yep.
Fair or foul, you think it's a bad look for Connor Stallions to be seen associated with the U of M?
Fair. I think it's a very bad look, but I got to say, I got to give him some credit. Like, the dude has he has some cojones. Like, he just doesn't give a damn. But what's interesting with Chase Winovich, he was one of them. Who else has a? Didn't Blake Corum have a picture with him as well?
He made a post shouting him out, and he apparently had an LLC with him.
Oh, I know who it was.
The company?
It was also the, my gosh, Detroit Lions stud pass rusher.
Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah, there you go. Aiden Hutchinson. He had a picture with him because he was asked about it, and he's like, oh, well, I take pictures all the time. I mean, it's so funny how many times this whole rogue operator thing is just blown up in their faces, yet they just continue with this dumb narrative, and I don't know. I'm very curious to see how this ends, and I don't just mean Monday night. I mean, how does this thing end with Harbaugh? Is he still there? What's the suspension, if any? I think there's going to be something. Does he go to the Chargers or another team? Who knows? It's going to be very interesting.
Well, Chico, moving on to the NFL, I saw something really fascinating about this is the lowest passer rating allowed amongst NFL cornerbacks. So in first place, you've got Martin Emerson of the Cleveland Browns. In second place, Denzel Ward. So arguably, based off the stat alone, of course, top two corners in the league. You also have Greg Newsome in the mix as well. But I want to ask.
Oh, you love these questions. Chico, is that the best wide receiver / tight ends? Is it the best corner room in the league?
That's not what I was going to ask.
Okay.
I was going to ask you if Martin Emerson was the most underrated piece of the Browns defense. But
now that is a very good question, Boom.
Oh, thank you.
I don't oftentimes call you out for your great question. That's a very, very great question, because the key is you didn't say, the most important. You didn't say the most impactful. You said the most underrated.
Yes.
Oh boy.
There are a lot of names that you could sprinkle in there for this one.
Here's the thing. When I love the question, though. I really do. As far as underrated, nationally, are people really talking a lot about Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah? Probably not. Here, we know he's a stud. But I mean, if you said, JOK's just, he has had an incredible year. I don't think most people nationally would know that. They know Myles Garrett. They know Denzel Ward. I would probably lean JOK. But I would say I think Emerson's right there, and I could, and they definitely. By the way, I'll ask and answer my own question. They are the best trio in the league. It is Martin Emerson Jr., it is Denzel Ward, and it is Greg Newsome.
Yeah, just an incredible season from them, and I did want to ask that now that you mentioned it, and I think you're right. I totally agree with you in terms of not just having the best trio of cornerbacks in the NFL. But also, I think my answer would have been JOK as far as underrated. Just what he's been able to do. And now he was nominated as a Pro Bowl alternate. I think he deserved the full-on Pro Bowl nod. Not that it really matters because
Martin
it's
Emerson deserved.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There were a lot. And obviously, you can't just elect every single Browns player onto the Pro Bowl roster.
Right. Yeah.
But it felt like there were a handful of guys that didn't get a nod or even a mention that probably should have.
I will say this. I agree with Lobby when Dan Lobby joined us in the first hour. Martin Emerson, obviously, but Dustin Hopkins, to me, I don't think he's missed yet from 50. Now, granted, he's hurt right now, but I think he's 8 for 8 beyond 50. And then you talk about the game winners, and you're knocking on wood, which is a good thing, but I don't even know if he's health-wise. Boy, that's one guy. I don't know. Maybe we'll talk more about it this week as we get ready for whoever the opponent's going to be. But we go through, okay, what are your concerns and what are you excited about? I'd feel a whole lot better. I still think they win whoever the opponent is, this wild card game, whoever it is. But I'd feel a whole lot better moving forward if Dustin Hopkins suddenly, and who knows? I mean, that could be a legit 4 to 6 week. Man, anyway.
I'm not superstitious. I'm just a little stitious, Chico. So I had to knock on wood when you throw that out there. But with that said, so obviously this run with Joe Flacco has been incredible. It feels unexpected. It feels like you've exceeded any expectations that you may have had. Now, obviously, starting the season with Deshaun Watson at quarterback, the expectations would have been to make some sort of playoff run. But when you suffer all these injuries, I think those expectations had to dip just a tinge. With that said, fair or foul, Chico, this Brown season should already be considered a success no matter what happens in the postseason.
Oh, 100%. And it's funny, I forget where I was reading this. I think it may have been like as far as the AFC North Division, like each beat writer was asked. I think it was from The Athletic. And like for the Bengals, no, obviously out and out failure. But like Baltimore, for instance, Baltimore, as great as they've had, it's been a success, but if they don't at least get to the Super Bowl, failure. But for the Browns, look, we said at the beginning of the year, man, they have to make the playoffs seemingly, or is Kevin Stefanski going to be around, which now we can laugh about. But, like, the fact that they are in this position, no matter what they do, and yeah, there's going to be a bit of a pull if they lose the wild card game, but I don't care. I mean, this has been not only one of the best seasons, but one of the most enjoyable, exciting, and it did not start out that way, and I'm not going to go down this road right now, but we know the whole offseason and Deshaun and whatever. And it's just been now, it's such a feel-good, everybody, feel-good. Wow, look at the Browns. Good thing. Incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's been a spectacular run. Now, in hindsight, some of those wins were just absolutely gruesome. Like, it felt like there was no way you were going to come out victorious, and you had to gut it out. And the way, like, in the end, it feels great. What the Browns have been able to do, how far they've come considering these circumstances. Kevin Stefanski is all but locked up Coach of the Year, in my opinion. And
I can't imagine. Anybody, and there's deserving candidates, but my God, I mean, they're going to be starting their fifth quarterback.
Well, you want to talk about head coaches, Chico. I want to shift gears to the NBA here because there's one who's been coming under fire, and this is not all too unfamiliar with LeBron-led teams.
Oh, the Lakers. Wow. Darvin Ham. Wow.
The Lake Show, baby. Darvin Ham, head coach, has been coming under some fire, not just from Laker fans, but media. We're seeing reports now that there is some, I guess you could say, internal discord. Fair or foul, Chico, Darvin Ham doesn't make it through the season as Lakers head coach?
I'm going to go fair on this because I don't think – here's what I think is going to happen, and I hope I'm wrong on this because I want LeBron to stay healthy. But I think this ankle thing is legit. Like, he's dealing with it. It's not just, he sprained his ankle. It's like a long name for it. I think that's legit. Something just seems really off. And you watch them before, like leading into the in-season tournament, right? Like they were, it was clearly something they wanted. They were motivated. I don't think it's Ham's fault. But at the same time, like they've lost 7 of 8, right? And yeah, of course, whenever this happens, in a lot of places, but certainly in LA, well, it's got to be the coach. I haven't paid close enough attention to, I don't know, like where minutes are going and bench and play. So I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend like I know the ins and outs of the Lakers. But I do know that LeBron, on nights where it was questionable whether he would play, leading into the in-season tournament, he was playing. Now he's sitting a little bit more, and are they just not motivated? Was the in-season tournament that motivating for the LA Lakers? Do they think it's done? They've already accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. They raised the banner at Staples. I don't know.
It's just so funny to me. Like, I feel like you can make a meme of like the cycle of LeBron teams, right? Where it's like you start off hot.
You're putting a lot of blame on LeBron on this, Boom.
Chico, we see it. Every team he's played on, every coach he's had, they've come under fire. They start off hot, they go into a slump, hear reports of coaching being bad, coach ousted, new guy comes in, repeat.
There could be a common denominator, although I will add that with the Lakers, it's always seemingly inevitable when this happens. But Bron could be the common denominator.
Yeah, and I don't want to put it all on LeBron, but it does feel like a little bit of a pattern.
It
that
does
we've been
feel
seeing
like
throughout
you
this
got it out
elongated
for
career.
LeBron James.
Oh,
That's what I think.
I got nothing against LeBron. He
All
brought
right.
this city a championship. He's the only leader of men who could say that he's done so. Okay, whatever. Moving on.
He's the only leader of men.
I don't know where I was going with that. I was leader of a team, but then it was leader of men to.
That's why Bohm is trending on Twitter, kids.
yeah,
right
that's
there.
exactly why.
He's
All
the
right.
only leader of men. Oh, I lost my train of thought.
Last one here to put a bow on this Friday edition of Fair or Foul.
Yeah.
So the Nets, the Brooklyn Nets, interestingly, so the NBA implemented this new rule, right, where if you happen to rest players more than they should be resting because you don't want to see players taking games off, then you could be disciplined. And so the Nets are the first team to experience the consequences of resting players more than they should, as back in December, they apparently rested some of their starters for like 4 straight games.
No,
Now,
I think it was 4 of their starters
4
didn't play on one particular game where they should have been.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you
all
for
right,
your
Paul.
correction.
It's all right.
Yeah.
Got a lot in
so
your mind with you trending.
They were fined 6 figures, Chico, 100,000. Do you think that the NBA? Do you think that these consequences, I guess, are just for the Brooklyn Nets?
Well, okay, they deserve. If in fact this is, I mean, they do the investigation and they determine, okay, I mean, there are a lot of teams, but a lot of times they'll toe that line, but they won't go this far. When you have 4 guys and like legitimate, good players and stuff, and all 4 of them are sitting and there's seemingly no real reason why, then you're going to get looked into. And now, here's what I would say. If you're the Brooklyn Nets or you're any team in the NBA, isn't $100,000 kind of a drop in the bucket if it means that, like, hey, I mean, yeah, okay, it's one game. Is it gonna determine whether or not you get to the postseason or win a championship or something like that? Probably not. But if this is $100,000 for these guys, these owners, I should say, it's a drop in the bucket. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about how like David Tepper was fined 300,000, and how that's like basically some loose change for a guy like that.
$140 or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
would be
nothing.
the yeah.
So I think it is interesting, and I wonder, as it pertains to the Nets, like if they're caught doing this again, if the fine will rise. Because 100,000 doesn't seem like all that much of a deterrent when you're talking about billionaire owners. But I digress. That is Fair or Foul, Chico.
Thank you, Bohm. Always a stellar edition of Fair or Foul. And
Always.
again, that is why he is trending on Twitter. By the way, ESPN is reporting that Trevor Lawrence is still very iffy. And that's the word they use, iffy. Not questionable or doubtful, iffy, with the division on the line. So that's so nice not to have to worry about this. We're just sitting back and what are you doing this weekend? What are you going to do on Sunday, Bohm? I think I know the answer to this. You'll sleep until about, oh, that's right. You have to work. You have to do the game. Yeah.
I do have to work the game, so I will be watching, Chico, intently and excitedly.
Okay.
Because it would be not as ideal to watch unexcitedly.
Boy, that would be tough. Like you're Jimmy D and you're Zagura and you're like, I mean, okay, yeah, you're professionals. I get it. But like if Driscoll drops back and hits David Bell for a score, does it have the same? Do you have the same exuberance, the same enthusiasm that you would if it's Flacco to Amari Cooper?
It's a fair question, Chico. I anticipate there to be like an underlying optimism, just because you already know you've punched your ticket into the second season, as Stefanski so eloquently puts it. And I think that this is so much better than just thinking back to like producing games last year, where it's just absolute turmoil, hopelessness, and it's like, oh, what are we doing? Like even if there are down moments, which I expect when you have Jeff Driscoll kind of getting thrown to the wolves in his first start as a Cleveland Brown, I still think that there's going to be that positivity to the broadcast, because at the end of the day, we know most of the starters that are healthy, so to speak. We know that we still have them, that the Browns will be coming back with them in the playoffs, and that's all that matters, baby.
Boom, you had a lot more to say about that than I anticipated. It's interesting.
I did think about it.
I didn't
did
think
cross
you'd
my
have,
mind.
I didn't really think you'd have that much analysis for that, but you did. And, well, we're all very grateful for that.
You know, the best part, I will say, to give a peek behind the curtain, the best part of producing those games is what Zagurha and Jimmy D talk about off the air.
That's
because
always the case.
You never know where they could go, and it's very entertaining.
For anyone who's ever board opt / produced games at any level, usually at high college or pros, that's always the most interesting part if you're producing, is what they say off the air. All right, we will take a quick break. When we come back, a couple things to talk about. Cavaliers are back at home. Those same Washington Wizards who, man, Washington not good, gave up 140 to the Cavs the other night, but the Cavs hopefully will continue the win streak and do it again tonight at home. Also, some I think good news. I think also very sad news for some, as an important former Cleveland Indian / Guardian is hanging it up. We'll tell you about that when we come back. And a couple of picks, not 6, but we got a few of these games that we've got to talk about for the weekend. That when we wrap things up next. Chico Borman Show on this Friday right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, so I know it's January. I know it's cold out. We just had the Christmas holiday and Hanukkah. Don't want to leave out Bohm. And we had all of that going on. But one big baseball note today for us here in Cleveland, Michael Brantley has decided to hang up the cleats after, 15 seasons?
Yes.
Yeah, 15 seasons, 5-time All-Star. Beloved here in Cleveland, went on to, be a great hitter. That's all he did. He just hit. You just knew a couple things about Michael Brantley. He was never going to have massive power numbers. He didn't have to. I think he ended up with 130 home runs in his career, but he was going to hit the gaps. He was going to find the gaps. He was going to hit those doubles, and he was going to hit those doubles mainly in the clutch. Michael Brantley, for me, we always talk about whenever you say, the player to be named later, and everybody always assumes that player stinks. Michael Brantley was a player to be named later in that Sabathia trade. And you choose from a pool of players, and they said, we'll take Michael Brantley. And, well, Michael Brantley ended up being pretty darn good for the Cleveland Indians and / Guardians.
Shout out to our fellow Michael B, Chico.
Is that why you were smirking about 30 seconds ago?
Yeah.
That's what.
That's exactly what it was. But also, career 298 hitter. That's well above the Mendoza line, to say the least, Chico.
I don't know if I mentioned earlier, but Bohm is trending on Twitter.
This is why.
Career 298 batting average, I believe I was saying. He hit, and he hit some more. So, yes, 298. And, yes, Bohm, that is well above the Mendoza line, which for those that
Can
don't
confirm.
know is 200. All right. With that, Jeez, oh, man, Bohm. Cavaliers are back in action tonight at home against the lowly Wizards. Cavs with 140 points in that game the other night against the Wizards. Hopefully going to do this again, continuing to nurse injuries. And, yes, the good thing is, and Ricky Rubio, I should bring that up, he has decided he's officially done now. We knew that. Kind of some really startling. We knew he was dealing with mental health. There were reports that he, at one point, either thought about suicide or tried to commit suicide. So very serious stuff. Rubio was a favorite, obviously, a few seasons ago. But now you open up Craig Porter Jr. He's got to – we keep pining for more – everybody's been pining for more minutes. And I know, it's one of the things that people criticize JB about, and I think to some degree very justified. But Cavs are still 19-15. And I know people want JB canned. Let's just chill out. Let's just chill out a little bit. Let this thing play out. All right, real quick. Pick 6, we're going to call it, pick 4, like the lottery. Texans at Colts. C.J. Stroud. Boom. Your boy, C.J. Stroud at Indianapolis. The winner is still in the playoffs. They would have a chance also at winning the division. But the Texans at the Colts, and the Colts are actually 1-point underdogs. Who do you like in this game, Bo? Going with
this is a good one, and it's interesting that you mentioned that the Colts could be the scariest team the Browns could face in that first round of the playoffs. But I think with a healthy C.J. Stroud, that scares me the most, Chico. And I don't want to have to root against my guy C.J. But that being said, I got to pick the Texans here.
See, Colts I don't want. I don't want to face the Colts. But I think the Colts, give me the Colts all day with this one. I think the Colts at home, and I like CJ. It's nothing against CJ, obviously, but they've been very hit or miss. Their defense has not been great, certainly of late. Colts, to me, are a very dangerous team. So give me the Colts. Getting that point at home. All right, Bills at Dolphins. We talked to Sal Capaccio. I love that name. Bills are 10-6, Dolphins 11-5, and the winner. Well, the Dolphins are in, but the Bills, if they win the division in the 2 seed, and if not, out. Like it's incredible. The Dolphins at home are getting 2.5. I like the Bills. I think the Dolphins are, in addition to, I think the Bills are the better team. The Dolphins are just really, really banged up. We touched on a little bit of that with Capaccio, but Miami is extremely banged up on both sides of the ball. So give me the Bills as they win the division and get the 2 seed.
And before I give my prediction, I too love that name, Chico. Capaccio. Got to say it with a little bit of oomph. But anyways.
Well, that was a really, really frightening face that you made, Bo. You were like, oomph.
Oh.
It's all right, Bo.
Thanks. Your feedback is duly noted. I am also going to take the Bills because I think those injuries, to your point. And by the way, Mike McDaniel certainly had to come under some fire for leaving 2 guys like Tua in that late for when they sustained that injury. When you're down.
Okay, but Chubb, I don't understand. They still needed a stop. They still need until and you're not. No coach. Like in those situations, no coach always just, okay, well, it's over. All right, we're pulling every last starter. I'm not buying. I'm with you that certain guy, but Bradley Chubb, it happened. I mean, I don't think it's an egregious, oh my gosh, what was McDaniel thinking? He totally, wasn't focused at all. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, and if I'm a Dolphins fan, I'm not. This is not like means for me to say like, oh, fire McDaniel all of a sudden.
No,
but
think so.
certainly, you just hate to see it happen so late in the game. And I am picking the Bills.
All right, Jags at Titans in Tennessee. I'll tell you what, Titans are nothing to play for. The Jags, everything to play for. I'm going crazy on this one. Titans are getting 3.5. The Titans are going to upset the Jags and win this game outright. I do not have faith in Jacksonville, and I know the circumstances with Tennessee. Give me Mike Vrabel, the Titans sticking it to Jacksonville and winning this game and eliminating the Jags.
Yeah, even with no implications on the line, you know that any Mike Vrabel-led team is going to fight to the very end. And with C.J. Beathard in the fold at quarterback, it certainly makes things dicey. But I'm going to take Jacksonville to win it outright and cover that spread. I just think this one matters too much to them. They can't afford it.
All right, finally, just kidding. We're not going to do Browns-Bengals because it doesn't matter. We don't care about this game on Sunday. We don't. We just want to see everybody healthy, get on the bus, or actually, Lobby informed us they're flying. Get on the plane, get home healthy. I mean, we do care. We'll watch. But as I said earlier, you can really earn some brownie points by acting like your lady or your guy who was your significant other deserves more attention during a Browns game and take them out, because this game really doesn't mean anything at all. But next week, oh, baby, yeah, we're going to be fired up.
Oh, baby.
All right, that's going to do it for this Friday edition of the Chico Borman Show. Thanks to Sal Capaccio and Dan Lobby for joining us. Coming up on Monday, I'm looking forward to this. Not only will we know the Browns' opponent, so we'll be all over that, but the national championship game, Michigan and Washington. And a buddy of mine from, years and years ago, Yogi Roth, played his college football at Pitt, coached under Pete Carroll at USC, and is now with the Pac-12 Network. He wants to give his UW Huskies a lot of pub. We're going to let him do that on Monday. So Yogi Roth, college football analyst, breaking down Michigan and Washington for all the marbles coming up on Monday night. Until then, boom. Job well done, as always. All of you out there, enjoy the weekend. Take full advantage of this Sunday. However you want to take that, just take full advantage of this Sunday. I'm Mike Chico Borman. Until Monday, make it a great weekend, everybody. See ya.